Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Groyper Report. Tonight, we have some groundbreaking news to share with you.
Welcome to the Groyper Report. Introducing the most racist men alive. They are shutting it down as we speak. Welcome to the Groyper Report. Sexist. Racist. Phobic this, phobic that. Terrorizing women across the country. Telling them to wear clothes. Saying all women are mid. Minorities fear them. The president has them on speed dial.
Guess what? Your body, my choice.
Brought to you by Frog Aura Maxing. Brought to you by Frog. GigaChat Central, yes, thank you for asking. They all must go. Welcome to the one and only. Defending the last white men on Earth. AtlasThugged and Josh Van Der Nord. This is the Groyper Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Groyper Report. I'm your host, AtlasThugged, aka White Boy D-Voice, aka another racially ambiguous Groyper, and I am joined by my co-host,
Joshua Van Der Nord, aka Undercover Jew, reporting for duty.
And we are the one network not afraid to say Christ is King. And welcome into this edition, number 11 of the Groyper Report. We have a lot to get into, and this might honestly be the most controversial week that we have covered so far to date. We had another one about a few weeks back when it came to the idea of civic nationalism, and people were saying Nick was vouching for brown supremacy and things of that nature. And today we have one that's probably a little bit more controversial than that, and I would say probably a lot more. But before we get into any of the more main kind of controversial stuff, we'll start off a little slow. We'll cover a little bit of Monday. Not too much happening on Monday, I would say. However, there was one kind of clip that kind of caught my attention, and as it pertained to AFPAC. And specifically when he was talking about AFPAC, he was talking about the liabilities of such. And probably the opening clip we'll move into. But obviously a mainstay of what we'll be covering will be the Epstein comments. Nick is in his villain arc. And what I would say is this. I'm going to continually become worse the longer that the opposition becomes worse. And since the majority of people who are opposition to the Groypers continually to be the most obtuse and I would say bad faith actors I've ever seen in the market beyond the people who are actively rioting in Minnesota right now, I have decided to become worse. We'll leave it at that. Josh, is anything you want to say before we open this first clip?
It's an all-around villain arc. Epstein did nothing. No, okay, we're not going that far. But I stand with Israel. No, I'm kidding about that too. I genuinely, I'm at the point where I am no longer giving the benefit of the doubt to anyone not willing to give Nick the benefit of the doubt. So no more reasoning with the unreasonable. We're going full steam ahead right here on the Groyper Report, everybody.
Yes. And I would ask too, if anyone has the Egyptian plane data from Candace Owens that supposedly was here some time ago, I've not seen it. I'd imagine Candace, because she's on the ball and she's spot on with everything. Somebody has it here in chat. So if you do, please link it to one of us. We would love to see that. But regardless, moving on to Nick Fuentes explaining why doing another AFPAC event might be a liability for him at this stage. And actually, before I do, I'm going to turn over to Josh. I need to set this up real quick. Let me move this to you, Josh, real quick. Talk for like 2 minutes
sure.
so I set this up.
Yeah, no problem. So this was actually something that was a little disheartening, but I do kind of get it because Atlas and I, being that we are the Groypers here on the New American Vision Network, we had actually talked about if there's another AFPAC, we should go. That would be a ton of fun. Excuse me, battling a cold here. And so I was a little disappointed to hear that we probably won't be getting one. But as we'll see in this clip, Nick explains why that is. However, no promises. It would be nice to get a NAVPAC going, New American Vision Political Action Conference. So we'll see if we can't get that to sort of fill the vacuum left by AFPAC.
Yes, no, and I do have it, so just bear with me. It just takes 2 seconds to attach this over. We'll get right to the clip.
Ours who sent $20. Nick, when is the next pack? Will it be racially segregated?
I don't know if we're going to do one, honestly. Look, there was a time when it made sense to do AFPAC, but I really think might be a liability now, and I'll tell you why. One, I think that the violence is going to increase. The last AFPAC, we had to literally call the FBI because there were serious threats of violence at the conference. And after Charlie Kirk, it's just you're begging to get murdered. So I'm a little wary. Maybe more importantly, though, number two, because you could take security precautions, but number two, what I'm really worried about is people getting doxxed. And we have a lot of powerful people on our side now. Like, you'd be surprised. And I don't want them all in one place assembled for some idiot to take everybody's picture by accident even. Because that happens. Sometimes a journalist will go and try to take a picture of everybody. And sometimes idiots are filming in the middle of it and they're getting everybody's face. And you're like, what are you doing? This is like a secret meeting. So we unfortunately have to go underground for a few reasons. And I'd like to do it. Don't get me wrong. I love to do it. It's fun. And I'm thinking about how we could put it together in some way. Maybe we do a series of smaller events. Because I love to see people. I love to get everybody connected. It's really a big value. Because for a lot of people, this is the most exciting thing going for them. Like their life sucks, their job sucks. Like they're just bitter. And they get to go to AFPAC and it's like, okay, well, like the revolution's happening. So the community aspect is very important. But at this stage in the game, I think that takes a backseat to the strategic imperative. We'll see, though. It will not be racially segregated, okay? Niggas welcome. Niggas welcome. Just, mind your manners, okay? Be a credit. Niggas are invited to AFPAC. Just, hey, be polite.
You heard him. You can show up to AFPAC. You can be black. Just act white. Simple as.
Are we going to get in trouble for that? There was a lot of N-bombs.
I don't really think so.
Hope not.
Don't think so. I am, because we're going to feature Alex Jones saying it later on here too.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Right. Well, I guess I'm kind of just a little disappointed because I never got a chance to go to an AFPAC, and I was hoping I would be able to at some point in the future. But it looks like that's probably not going to happen. And I kind of get why he's doing it. Ultimately, but I do think there's a level of I do think he genuinely fears something may happen to him sometime in the near future,
which is completely reasonable. I mean, regardless of what you think happened with Charlie Kirk is dead. He was killed by somebody, whether that be Israel or leftists. Both of them hate Nick Fuentes. So no matter what happened with Charlie Kirk, it could easily happen with Nick Fuentes. And I think it's a totally reasonable thing. And I also think it's smart because like he said, there's influential people in the Groyper movement now. And we don't want to get them doxxed. We don't want to get them exposed. So it's kind of an unnecessary thing at this point. Again, bummer. I'll tell you what, Atlas, we will go to the next AFPAC, which is going to be Nick's inauguration day in 2036, 2042,
2040, 2036. It would probably be closer to 2036 if he was to maintain the momentum. But let's hope so, right? I would, how about dictator? No one would be an inauguration. It'll be when the crown is passed from Baron Trump, who in his final acting duty of president will be the conversion of the republic to the monarchy. And then in that final act, Baron Trump says, and now the American Republic is dead. Long live the king. And then he crowns Fuentes and everyone cheers. And then Israel blows up.
Then B-2 bombers fly over the Capitol. The George Washington Monument starts coming out of the ground even more, it just starts growing.
It's like the Lord of the Rings when they look at the elves, the last elves who are left and they're cheering. But in our universe, it'll be the last Iranians. They'll be over there like a crowd. They're like, thank you. Oh, we won, our allies.
Hell yeah.
But it was true though, and I thought the funniest part in there actually was the element of you can show up, you can be black, just be white, and that's really what it boils down to with a lot of it, right? A lot of people get it, over the top over the skin color. It's just the way that you act. We're judging you by the content of your character. When you hear a hard R, just know you were judged by the content of your character. It had nothing to do with what color of your skin was. It was the way that you had just stolen somebody's tires off their vehicle that got you called that. But that's kind of basically.
When's the last time a black guy in a three-piece suit and a briefcase was just called an N-word out of a car window? When's the last time that ever happened?
I have no idea. What's crazy is, since we're on this topic, there was a viral video of an old man who was like losing it on a security guard. I have no idea what the background detail is, but he was dropping N-bombs on him, and they arrested the guy. They arrested the old white dude for it. So, yeah, First Amendment, my ass.
There you go.
Unfortunately, one of the other things that did happen this week was Scott Adams did pass, and I did want to spend some time actually looking at one of his final messages, or his literal final message from Scott Adams. And just to connect the two, obviously going from, some jokes about black people to Scott Adams, one of the most valiant things that Scott Adams did in his final moments, in his final bits of his career, was he became extremely honest about the problem in the room, the elephant in the room for a lot of people, which is the problem of race. And to which I believe, I'm paraphrasing here, but to which he told white people, it's not your problem. Quit helping black people, because he was beginning to wake up to a lot of the realities of which. But to turn over to one of his final messages, I know there was obviously some discussion and debate about his belief in Jesus Christ from the Christian nationalist community. But regardless, I want to take it over here and just take a look at what some of his final messaging was here. And I'll just read a little excerpt of it here. I actually want to go to the last bit here. I know you guys might not be able to see this because I won't be able to zoom it in much further. But here we go. Scott Adams says, "You'll probably never know the impact the book had on the world." And he's talking about one of his writings. "And it pleases me while giving me a sense of meaning that it's impossible to describe. My next book, Loser Think, tried to teach people how to think better, especially if they were displaying their thinking on social media. That one didn't put much of a dent in the universe, but I tried. Finally, my book, Reframe Your Brain, taught readers how to program their own thoughts to make their personal and professional lives better. I was surprised and delighted at how much positive impact that book is having. I also started podcasting a live show called Coffee with Scott Adams, dedicated to helping people think about the world and their lives in a more productive way. I didn't plan it this way, but it ended up helping lots of lonely people find a community that made them feel less lonely. Again, that had great meaning for me. I had an amazing life. I gave it everything I had. If you got any benefits from my work, I'm asking you to pay it forward as best you can. That is the legacy I want. Be useful, and please know that I love you all to the end. Scott Adams." And I just have large respect for Scott Adams for being just like a figure for as long as that he was. Right? I read the Dilbert comic strip growing up. I don't know if you had ever read much of that, Josh, but I was somebody who I listened to who, even though I didn't agree for the large portion of like what he was saying, just in general positioning from where he was, like what he would have considered himself. But he had a lot of takes that were, I thought, really good and really helpful. And I just wanted to do, again, RIP to Scott Adams for that. This is another kind of towering titan that's now out of the picture. But I'm curious if you weren't familiar with Dilbert or anything, were you?
I know of it. I never read it personally. Of course, to me, this is one of those things where it's like, obviously Scott Adams wasn't a hardcore Christian white nationalist, but at a certain point of time, Scott Adams, Benjamin Netanyahu, Donald Trump, AtlasThugged, Joshua Vandernoord will all be bones, and death is the great unifier at a certain point, and it is a tragedy that we all share this fallen world. But I guess so do we want to discuss his Christian comments a little bit? His
that's
deathbed conversion?
Yeah.
Because I saw the report where it was like, oh, he had a deathbed conversion. And to me, I'm like, awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
I don't see that as a problem. Now, obviously it'd be better if people were Christian their whole lives, but if you get in at the finish line, amen, more power to you. But then I read what he actually said. And I hate to say it because he passed away in such a terrible way, but it was kind of cynical and did not seem genuine.
Yeah. And so I had the exact same thought process because I saw the news. It was like just like a headline of like, Scott Adams' conversion.
Yep.
And then I saw Joe Webbin's take on it. And then I saw Stephen Anderson's take on it. And then I saw a lot of pastors kind of coming in and chiming in. And I was like, oh, that's so unfortunate. Because then I saw the level of the statement there. And it did feel like he was still avoiding in those final moments to say like, I believe in Jesus Christ. Just from the language, right? And I think that's what most people are kind of picking apart was like the language that was used in it. But I guess I would say this: I hope for the best for Scott. Ultimately, really do.
Yeah, and it's not my place to say if it was genuine or not. It could just be professional embarrassment, which again it is no excuse, but only God knows his heart, and only God knows where he is and where he's going right now. So,
Right.
and honestly, I hope it's heaven. I really do.
Right. And but yeah, I just wanted to bring that to people's attention for anybody who might have missed it. If you're wondering like why you haven't seen Scott Adams lately or why you might not in the future, that is the reason why. Moving on from there though, I think we're just going to start into probably the most controversial stuff. This is going to be on Tuesday. So we're off of Monday. We've moved into Tuesday now. And it was on the Tuesday America First episode that we got the first opening statement about how Nick felt about, well, not even that. That's not even the right way to actually say it. Nick wanted to make a point about the sensationalism of the pedophilia accusations around Epstein. And his point was to make, the idea was, the main thing that people should be focused on and paying attention to is what the blackmail was being used for. What was the purpose of said blackmail? But it was in these statements that we have now gone full circle to where we are getting statements from people like Uncensored.ai that is now saying and pushing that Nick is trying to normalize pedophilia. So this is kind of where we are. So all the detractors have some very easy bones to pull from, which is to pull this 51-second clip, which again, notoriously skips the first 17 seconds, which talks about why he's saying not to focus on this stuff. But we're just going to go through it bit by bit. We have a statement that was given on Tuesday. I believe we do have another one that he follows up with on Wednesday. And then once we follow that one on Wednesday, we're going to go to where he was at on Thursday. So we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, each statement kind of following the progression of the people's reaction to these statements and just the general nature. And then you have people like Candace Owens and others jumping in on it as if Candace Owens has any meaningful words to say at this point in time. And then on Friday, we get what was the title and the thumbnail of the show, The Acceptance of the Villain Arc. And we'll get into a little bit of why I think there's an extra push of edginess from Nick, why he's kind of like leaning into it now towards the end of the week. But we'll explain that and we'll get into it there. But starting us off is on Tuesday. And this was the first clip that got people's minds reeling.
The problem with Epstein is that he is a Jewish spy. That's the problem. This whole pedo thing, it's like, is it really pedophilia? I don't want to be the one that has to say it, but I guess I'm being forced to say it. It's not really pedophilia, okay? They weren't trafficking 5-year-olds. It was like they were technically not legal. Big difference, in my opinion. I know that's a controversial take, but that's not really the issue there, okay? The issue is not that they were barely legal teens, which is what it is. It's horrendous. It's awful. It's pedophilia. Okay, relax. No, the issue is that Epstein is a Jewish spy, probably working with Israel. That's the dilemma there. He's working with Israeli intelligence. So I see these shit libs at the ICE protests in Minneapolis, and they're yelling, pedo protector. They're saying to ICE, you're with the pedo protector, pedo president, and this idiot in the factory, they're saying this. It's like, that's not even really the issue there, goof.
So, and just to show you This is the minute and 17 version, the one that went hugely viral from people like Clandestine, who is notably a Zionist, Shadow of Ezra, who notably doesn't talk about Israel, but these are conspiracy, tinfoil hat accounts that typically always avoid talking about the organized Jewry. And this is the minute 17 version. The one that was going viral was like 51 seconds, and so it skips that first portion of what he's kind of framing it out to be. But I'll go ahead and turn over to Josh, kind of open us up on where you were at on Tuesday when you heard this.
So what's interesting to me about this clip is the reaction from it, because I watched America First with Nicholas J. Fuentes, and I heard this take, and to me, it was just another super chat. If you watch Nick, this is nothing new. The idea that like 18-year-old girls and 17-year-old girls can't be attractive. It's something he's talked about before. It's something that is just obvious. Like, yes, like 17-year-old women can be attractive. It's case by case, whatever. And that's all he was getting at, was he was like, from what we know now, it was not satanic blood jacuzzis. It was not 5-year-olds, as far as we know. Don't lose sight of why this is an important story, because a Jewish spy was running a blackmail ring on American politicians, American titans of industry. That's why this is important. And then, of course, it's pedo protector, Trump, pedo protector Nick. And it's like, it's the sensationalism of the conspiracy theory, which we've talked about that before, and Nick talks about it all the time now, especially in light of Charlie Kirk's assassination, is the hyperfixation on like the most sensational form of a conspiracy theory. And we talked about this before we went live today, how it's like Josh Vandernoord and AtlasThugged are 9/11 truthers. We believe in the conspiracy behind 9/11, but it seems like people go, oh, what about like holographic airplanes? We go, no, I don't believe in that. They go, okay, $7,000 deposited in your bank account. It's purity spiraling over nothing. And that's the thing is, we had talked with other people in NAV about how, well, it diminishes the blackmail. And it's like, if the focus is the reason of the blackmail, whatever the blackmail is, it's not, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does and it doesn't. And on top of that, excuse me, my throat's acting up. It is like, it's just a anti-Nick sentiment. I mean, let's be honest here, is Nick has said things like this before all the time. And people spiral out over nothing like this. It's nothing new.
Yeah, I mean, well, like the one example I would bring up would be the Sean Ryan show. And so there's a clip going around of the Sean Ryan show where Sean Ryan's sitting there going, and he's moralizing over the sensationalist element of they're protecting pedophiles. The Trump administration is protecting pedophiles, going, over and over and over again. And, does anyone sitting here think that Sean Ryan's about to start opening up on Israel, dominating and subverting American interests? Like, no, not even close. And so this is kind of an example of people are talking about Epstein, but they're not talking about the most important element of it, which is what was the blackmail for, right? What was he recording all these people for? Just to have it at home? I mean, like that is the most important element of it. And like, that does need to be brought back up. And so it's kind of wild to see such like a very nuanced point be turned into something like this. But at the same time, I'm not shocked by it anymore. I'm not surprised by it anymore. Maybe the only thing I'm surprised by is the willingness for people to keep coming back and doing it. No matter how many times like everybody else gets proved wrong and it just keeps going. At a certain point, maybe it would fall off, but I guess not. And there is this ecosystem of people who are just like, they're just like waiting. They're just like salivating like the mouth. They're like just anything, any piece of thing that they can go in against Nick. And the part that I find the most disingenuous is the majority of the people who are sitting there like these rabid, like sad dogs who are doing all of this, like complete radio silence on Candace Owens, sitting there talking about fucking remote astral viewing, and Charlie Kirk was a state-sponsored, time traveler, and they had him down, and she had pretended that she wasn't that she wasn't smart enough, so she wouldn't get it picked up in the gate program or the tag program, and her and her mom, like, and they just, it's such fucking dog shit, dude. And like, what bothers me the most is like, when is Ian Carroll going to call out Candace Owens for something so obviously and overtly bullshit? Haven't seen it yet. When is Chris Manahan going to quote that? When is the Project Constitution going to quote that? When is any of these people who have been literally screaming at the top of their lungs about Nick going to check their own crowd? And the reality is, for most people, dude, Candace Owens is, do you understand that we went from a period where people would joke about conspiracy theorists. They would say, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. Oh. To then, we were actually doing so well because we didn't have a bunch of tinfoil idiots ruining the party for everybody. We got to the point where we had Alex Jones was right jar. It became a meme. All of a sudden, conspiracy theorists were right. Candace Owens, in her retarded ass way she's handled this, is literally single-handedly dragging us back to where we just were. Oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. And so you have all these elements here that you can't even follow the line of logic, and for a lot of it too. And it's bothered me a lot too, because a lot of it's not coming from any kind of coherent standpoint. I mean, and even if you were to take it in the most charitable interpretation, it's like you're then also, you are siding with feminists over the vast majority of human history. You're siding over feminists over the vast majority of biblical history. You're siding, and to me, it's just insane. There's no actual logical connection to any of these dots. And the thing is, and that's why I titled it, yes, you were all wrong. Like, he is right. Historically, through all, America included, nations all across the world. And I told this to Josh actually before I came on. You know, and Jesus, right? What did he do the majority of the time that he was here? Rebuked what? What did Jesus rebuke? Jewish tradition. Over and over and over again. This is the story of Jesus. Truly, I tell you, how many times did Jesus say that? All the time. Because he was asserting himself as the authority over the other teachers. Because in those times, the rabbis would refer to other rabbis. They would say, truly, Rabbi, and they would refer to somebody else. Jesus says, no, truly, I tell you. And so the idea here is that in biblical Israel and in the biblical Middle East, Jesus was walking all around all these different nations, all over the place. And the one tradition he doesn't rebuke is the long-held tradition of marrying women off at 12, birthing by 14. That's the one thing that Jesus thought he doesn't need to say. They already understand. And so there's no logical consistency to any of this. And it's all boils down to people who are just actually angry at Nick and like have other problems with Nick. And they turned it into a sensationalist moment. And it kind of comes full circle. Ironic, isn't it? That in his statement to say, let's not sensationalize this element and let's stay focused, everyone sensationalized the moment. And here we are. So, anything else you want to add to that? We'll move to the next one on Wednesday.
Did someone say go off, King? You know, no, but dude, and it's so funny. No one said this yet. I just thought about this. Kind of funny that like this astral projection narrative from Candace Owens is coming out. What is it, like a week after the Stranger Things finale, where that's like a main part of the plot is they can astral project. Kind of funny how it's always like, kind of like, it seems like Candace, these things don't just come out of nowhere, you know, with Brigitte Macron and stuff. There's always this kind of precipitating cause. I wonder why, but you're exactly right. And you bring up an excellent point about all these people that were backing Candace Owens now are strangely silent, like Ian Carroll and others. But we talk about how there is an active, regardless, all the people that hate Nick in our chat and our whatever, you know, in our audience, we all agree that there is an active effort to subvert our message, to subvert the right, to subvert Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, ask yourself, who's doing that more? Nick, by saying that from what we know, there were not 5-year-olds. From what we know. And he says we're not getting the Epstein files because there's probably worse stuff in there. Or Candace Owens, who's talking about moon children and astral projection and ancient Sumerian like time travel technology. Which one diminishes the Israel message more, to the JQ more? Christian nationalism more.
Right.
I rest my case.
Well, let me take it a step further. Like, I made a whole documentary about it, or bring it up all the time, and like, you know, some of these most ardent anti-Semites are like, "What's Project Esther?" Like, oh my Lord, have mercy. And this is part of the element too, which is like, how about we like, let's intellectually like, let's fucking lock in, guys. Let's like actually read. Let's like read news stories. Let's stay involved. Let's like learn things. Let's like learn history. And it's a message I try to tell people all the time. I feel like Nick tries to tell his audience to be studious as well too. But in there, and I'll explain it again too, with like Project Esther, one of the elements is not one of the necessary conditions, but one of the desired effects. And so it's like DE, and it's one of the first 10. But one of the desired effects of Project Esther coming from the Heritage Foundation is they do want to divide the anti-Israel groups. They want to drive the sub-factions of the anti-Israel groups to not trust each other. That is effectively, whether organically or not organically, that is effectively what's happened. So, for example, in the lens of the Renee Nicole Good, that has effectively separated the left and the right under the anti-Israel banner, because now there's back and forth. Now, while we're trying to talk about anti-Israel, because of Nick's positioning on Renee Nicole Good, people are tuning out, right? Because Nick is like cheering on the death of this innocent woman, whatever. Then you go to the Venezuela accusation. And then that's also another one of these elements that's driving divisiveness. It's taking away from this idea of like the primary objective being to be anti-Israel. And then you get like these things like neocon Nick, whatever. But the major point being is that it is very intentional, and one of the desired effects from the project that we know has already been an initiative. It's like 60% to 70% already implemented. One of those desired effects is coming about, and we're seeing that. We're seeing Candace fans attack Nick fans. We're seeing even like the Dave Smith crowd. You can see all these smaller factions all fighting each other, even though they largely would broadly agree on the basic tenet of like decoupling from Israel. And so therein, whether it's direct or indirect, they are getting that desired effect, which is these groups are now fighting each other with things that matter ultimately much less than the actual getting America's interests back in its own determinate hands, not Israel's. But again, you would need to be able to read to know some of these things, and I don't know if anybody in some of the times in these chats even does that. I'm not even trying to be rude, dude, but like I'm thoroughly disappointed and disheartened in just the general reaction I've seen over the last couple of days. And it's not even me wanting to be mean, but it is like I told one of my mods this the other day. It became very clear, like in this moment, why progress is so slow, like so excruciatingly slow. And it is because people are so beside themselves, concerned about the wrong things at always the wrong times. And it's no wonder why progress takes like 100 years to see like a 1% change. And so that's unfortunate, but regardless, we have to strive nonetheless. It's not a reason to black pill. It's a reason to just go. It is the way it is.
Yeah, dude, that was something that was really astonishing to me. And I'm starting to realize it more the more we do this kind of content. It's like a lot of these people, they would never say this, but they want to lose. They don't want to win. And what do I mean by that? It's like it's basically, but it's paralysis by analysis is what it is.
Right.
Is every little thing, if and we say purity, that purity spiraling gets thrown around a lot, but that is what it is. It's like, okay, we've been burnt so many times by guys like Donald Trump. And believe me, I get it. That, well, if you don't perfectly align with exactly what I believe, if you're a Christian nationalist, if you're a white nationalist, if you're, anti, women's liberation and all that, we're aligned on everything, but you're like a Calvinist. It's like, oh, get them out of here. Spy, Fed, get them out of here. You know what I mean? And it's like, right. You clearly don't care. And that's why, like, Nick, he talks about making these alliances with Myron Gaines, who's kind of a Muslim. I'm not even really sure. Andrew
Tate, beefing with each other right now.
Oh, they are beefing with each other. Well, okay, but like Sneeko and Andrew Tate, the point is like whenever they're not beefing with each other, it's like we can work with these people because they have a semi-solid message for the time. And Nick has talked about this where it's like people get on him because he's cleaning up his message now. And they say, oh, see, he's backpedaling. he's back, but he's becoming liberal now. And it's like, no, it's that the conversation has changed. You couldn't say JQ without getting crucified 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
3 years ago.
You can now. Yeah, exactly. It's mainstream now. So now that it is, you're not going to get this 2016 like me more energy where you can just say and do whatever you want. You know, this is feminism is cancer. You know what I mean? Like I mean, you can say, you know, we can be critical of feminism, but we have to be smart about it now. You know, you can't be the edgelord anymore in the White House. I mean, that's just true. We're not going to bring this like Reddit edgelordness into the halls of Congress. If we actually want to get in the halls of Congress, we've made the message. It's in the mainstream. Now we have to carry it the rest of the way.
Well, it also goes to like what you were saying in the beginning, right? People wanting to lose. The right is they're trained. I think a lot of them are browbeaten into being beautiful losers. And one way you can look at this is with the like the abolitionists. This is like a smaller kind of debate inside of the right wing. And you have people like I'm going to forget his name, but I think it's Ben Zeisloft. And he took tremendous amount of heat leading up to the Trump administration, Trump campaign, because he wasn't voting for Trump either, but it wasn't for the same reasons that you would ascribe to Nick. And the reason is because he's unwilling to even detach himself to anybody whose line is short of banning abortion completely off the board. But the only reality is we know that's not a winning strategy. And were that to be the ticket, it more than likely would lose. And so when you look at it from a pragmatic, realistic sense, you go, well, it would make more sense then to insert something that would be like, you know, removing funding from Planned Parenthood and getting rid of IVF, right? It's like a compromise. Because it's in the hope that the next person who gets in can continually chip away at these things. Otherwise, what you're left with is you're moving the opposite direction. And then you have more ground to cover the next time you're up for election. And so like there's this idea that there's like an actual pragmatic sense and a realistic way of handling these things. And a lot of people do get stuck and caught up in like, I wouldn't say delusion, but like they are disconnected from the realities of how things play out. And so when you can't see the technical side and what actually goes like, and understand the full process of like from point A to point B, you can make some judgments that might be entirely incorrect because you're misunderstanding or you don't understand or even know certain processes that are in play. And this is like one of the biggest issues too. And I'm a strong pragmatist again, because I call myself an acolyte of Jeff Younger, but that is one element I think, and I think Nick talks about this a lot more now too, which is like you have to be realistic. You can't set goals and then not make them realistic ones, because then ultimately you will blackpill yourself because you'll make some things unattainable and impossible. You'd have like a stronger mindset. And here I am giving an incrementalist argument, and I'm an accelerationist. But it's like at least I can engage in the hypothetical, and at least I understand what the opposition is, and I can explain it back to you. But for some people, it's just simply not true. But I think I'm going to go to the Wednesday. We're going to move to the Wednesday readdressment of the same exact issue. We're going to go down the timeline here. But this is going to be essentially his first response to the backlash of his comments on Tuesday. So this is from Wednesday.
Anyway, so I'm glad to hear that.
Groyper sent $20. Niggas coming at you for the Epstein pedophile tickle mount. German age of consent is 14. Most of Europe is 16. Are they all pedophiles too? We've been so feminized we can't even admit 17-year-olds are hot anymore. And even if Trump was cracking 16-year-olds, I would just give him dap and be like, nice, that's awesome.
So yeah, honestly, first of all, everybody totally took that out of context. No charity either. I never get the benefit of the doubt. You take a 20-second clip, I say something you don't like, and people go, what the fuck? He took the pay. Fuck you. You know what I have to say? Like my president, fuck you. You're fired. Like straight up, if you don't give me the benefit of the doubt, I've been doing this for a million years. I feel like this all the time. It's like we're always walking around on eggshells not to offend the dumbest idiots on the platform, like Stu Peters. Stu Peters is in the replies. This is gross. Dude, you're a fucking stupid loser. How dare you? You took a break from crashing your ATV drunk, beating the shit out of your wife, scamming all your followers to go and what? Call me gross because I said something you don't like? You don't even understand what I'm saying. You're not smart enough. So I'm done pandering to the dumbest idiots in the room. I'm done. Fuck you. I'm shaking you off. All of you dumbasses, I'm shaking you off. I said unpopular things 10 years ago when you were doing whatever you were doing, when you were hitting yourself in the face with a hammer. I'm saying unpopular stuff now. I've always said unpopular, heterodox stuff. I care about politics. You don't. For this is just the latest fad. You'll be onto some other thing in 3 years. So I don't need all that. But what I said, and the point that I'm making about Epstein, people are getting caught up in the sensationalism of pedophile. And I said this last year when the story broke. I said the exact same thing. I said, yes, they are sex crimes. Obviously, it is human trafficking. Obviously, according to the law, it is statutory rape. But it is in the service of a blackmail ring for intelligence. It is important not to lose sight of that. And this is a category error. People say you're a pedo protector, but Trump is not protecting pedophiles because they're pedophiles. He's protecting sex criminals because they are a part of a subversive intelligence network. That's the point. And I said that in July, and I said that when there was more urgency for the files to be released in the fall. I said, let's not get too hung up on the sensational details of the actual sex crime, because this is not just about somebody was trafficking girls somewhere. That's not the story. The story is someone was trafficking girls to acquire blackmail to sell to Israel. That is the point. And that is what I said last night. I said, for someone to make it all about pedophilia, I said, it's kind of just like, it's not really true, because again, it does get away from what's happening there. It is not satanic pedophilia cult stuff. It is really run-of-the-mill prostitution and sex trafficking, but for a international political purpose. And it's important not to lose sight of that. I saw Marjorie Greene say this is about female victims. It's actually not about female victims. It's about the integrity of our government. You understand the difference? It's not to say we're not sympathetic. It's not to say that it's not criminal. It's not to say that it's good. I'm not defending it. I'm saying this is not Dateline. This is not a human interest story. This is a layered crime. It's one crime in the furtherance of a much more politically significant crime. But all these dumbasses, I mean, they literally just don't have the IQ to understand that.
That's kind of the broad reasoning with that take, right? So this is where we are with Wednesday. And again, like what's insane here is like look at this, right? Let me find this. I saw one of these chats in here.
Uh-oh.
Can you read that for me, Josh?
Now he is walking back his previous statement.
Can someone find what was walked back?
That's, dude.
Can someone throw me a bone?
That's so perfect. That right there, that's so perfect. It's so indicative of these people. Like this is like so my TikTok is basically thinks I'm a black liberal. It's so finely tuned to black content. And this is like the black this is like Dr. Umar Johnson, where it's like, you know what? There's no noses on the Egyptian Sphinx because they shot them off because they thought they'd be black or something. You know, it's like they just find anything. They just make shit up to expose it. It's like, okay, Nick said that he's a pedophile. Nick Fuentes said, I'm a pedophile. And he goes, no, that's not what I said. Oh, now he's walking it back. Okay. So you just can't win. Well, now we know what game we're playing.
Dude, my brain's just like tingling. It's just like tingling. It's like I can't even put my brain into the mindset of some of these people, to be honest with you. Like, all right, guys, you're right, dude. You're totally right. I need to stop listening to Nick right now, and we're gonna everyone switch over to Candace Owens. This is the Standish Report. Get the fuck out of here, dude. It's such like I know other experts are like, I just want to make fun of people now. Like, I don't even care if it pisses people off. Like, let's just make fun of people. Let's be obtuse. If we're gonna and it's like, be obtuse, I will join you. I will be there with you.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become Chuck Mason.
Well, here's the thing: it's like, are people arguing that Israel's the lesser important element of the story? Is that like the argument that we're going with?
Atlas.
Sorry.
So the important thing about this is that Satan is locked up in the basement of Epstein Island, and it's actually they're using child blood rituals to keep him at bay. And geopolitics, that's the secondary aspect. That's just the cherry on top. They're like, oh, okay, well, we'll just use this also as blackmail. Right now, we have to go praise Baal and Moloch in the basement of Epstein Island on the sundial or whatever.
Well, the thing is like, there more than likely is like satanic elements to this. Like we've seen it with, I can't remember what that famous like celebrity handler chick is. Like she literally looks like she like is the daughter of Satan. Like she might as well be named Lilith. But the point being is like I agree with the main point there, like which is that Israel has been doing this for an extended period of time. And even in addition to that, it wasn't always in this frame. Israel's blackmailing on a number of things. Israel blackmailed, we have one of the first ever blackmails that came from like Samuel Untermeyer over, I think it was Woodrow Wilson, was about like an affair. It was about an affair he had out of wedlock. But nowadays, nobody would even care. They'd be like, oh guys, Trump had an affair. Nobody even blinked. And then with Hoover, head of the FBI, being blackmailed for well over like 40 years. What was he being blackmailed with? Wasn't pedophilia. It was his gay relationship he had with, I think it was the assistant director. There's like this weird photo of them on the couch. It's very disturbing. But they didn't need that. And so it was like, it doesn't matter. They would just, you can blackmail anybody on whatever the social taboos are. But the most important element is the fact they've been doing it for nearly 100 years. And it has been taking America's ability to act in its own interest away from us. Because you have this highly organized elite group of individuals with many connections in a geopolitical network that's existed for well longer than any of us have lived. Well, I don't know if anybody's that old here. Like that to me is like by far and away the most important point. And then people are saying, well, now he's working for the Jews. Can someone like, am I like just the insane person here? Like this, none of this makes any sense at all. None of it makes any sense. He's working for the Jews, but the person that I listen to the most is talking about state-sponsored time travel. I'm just like, obviously I'm being a bit facetious on some of it, but still, it's like, please someone connect the dots for me, please. Like, tell me how making the point that the most important element here is that Jews have been running America for 100 years of blackmail makes him like he flipped. He's like a good goy now. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? Anyways, crash out over. Moving on to another thing that happened.
Here's the thing. I want to say this real quick before we move on from Epstein. Is I would venture to say that what's up, man? You and me, Atlas, we don't deny that there was probably or pedophilia going on Epstein Island. They have not released the files yet. The point is it's like we know enough. We know it's been established. Ghislaine Maxwell is directly connected to Mossad. Epstein is directly connected to Mossad. The blackmail operation, we know what it was for. The depravity of the blackmail at this point in time is inconsequential. If Donald Trump's favorite color was pink and he didn't want, for whatever reason, he would kill to not let that get out, that's enough. Now, obviously,
right.
The depravity of it, like, we want these people to be prosecuted. I told you a story about how, like, when I was a reporter in Boone, the FBI uncovered a child sex studio where they were creating child pornography. Disgusting, egregious. But there's a reason we're not talking about that story, because it doesn't involve politicians. It doesn't involve blackmail.
Right.
That's why Epstein is so important. And it just also happens to be highly sensational.
Right. Right. You're right. Exactly. Like if it was sodomy, if it was like, sexual relations out of wedlock, like, and I would say even the fact that they've moved to the pedophilia is because it is a direct reflection of the general degeneracy of society. That's how far the blackmail had to stoop because people continually are more shameless than they ever have been. And it just like, but again, I don't know. Maybe some of this stuff's just out of reach for a lot of people. We're going to move to Thursday. Thursday is specifically kind of like the last kind of large time he addressed it, like in a kind of a serious nature. Because after Thursday's response, we get to Friday, and Friday's when he's full blown, like accepting the fill-in arc. Epstein did nothing wrong, is what he's saying. And so we'll go to Thursday first. Thursday's a very long clip. I want to say that. We're not going to play the entire thing, not even close to it. But just to point out to people, there's an 18-minute full response from Nick that I doubt you'll see anywhere. I doubt Shadow of Ezra will clip it. I doubt Chris Menahan will clip it. I doubt any of these people who are screeching at the top of their lungs will clip it, to be honest with you. But we just need to really watch the first 3 or 4 minutes. He kind of nails the broad point there. And but here it is.
Have completely dominated men with the word pedo. They took what was natural male sexuality for all human history and conflated it with child fucking to shame men away from it and artificially increase the sexual value of hags. How old was Mary again when God impregnated her?
Dude, brother, so true. So true. That is so absolutely true. And listen, you niggas are not ready for that conversation, but Jeff Epstein, not a pedophile, but you're not ready for that conversation. All of his victims, 14 to 17. That's not pedophilia. But y'all niggas ain't ready for that conversation. People say that's normalizing pedophilia. No, that's defining pedophilia. Pedophilia is sex with children. Children are people that are before the age of sexual maturity. Now, you can have your opinion and your taste and your ethics and your morals, but after the age of 14, that is past the point of sexual maturity, just period, biologically. And all of these feminists and all of their accomplices, the simps, they all want to say there's only 2 genders. They want to talk about reproduction and genitals. Okay, let's talk about reproduction and genitals. When do men and women reach the age of sexual maturity? It ain't 18. It isn't 20. I've seen women say a 20-year-old girl is a literal child. No, sorry, she's not even a figurative child, let alone a literal child. You know what canon law in the Catholic Church says? It says the minimum age to get married is 14 for women, 16 for men. That's the canon law of the Catholic Church. So you want to pull rank on me with morality? I would take you there. And by the way, that's how it was for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Do you know when age of consent became a thing? Like 30 years ago. That is a second wave feminist artifact. But you people are not ready for that. Because ultimately, feminism is the matrix. And that is how women have browbeaten men with this, pedo, rapist, misogyny, all these words to prop up women's rights. That's ultimately what it's about. It's about women completing high school and going to college. That's what it is. The only reason, and let me tell you this, I'm not in favor of like everybody go have sex with 14-year-olds. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the only reason that people are so horrified when people talk about like 16 and 17 not really being immoral, it's because we have a culture of casual sex and pornography and hookups and prostitution. That's why. Why is it considered completely depraved at age 17 and a half versus 18? Because we hate the idea of young, vulnerable girls being preyed upon by strange men, by pimps, by pornographers. That's why it is abhorrent. Because there is something true about that. If you are grooming a child into sex, if you are, or I should say a teenager, if you're grooming a teenager into sex, if you're grooming a teenager into prostitution, pornography, that is especially wicked because teenage girls are vulnerable. Teenage girls arguably cannot make those decisions. But that is only because we live in a society where that kind of predation is happening. And that's where it starts to make sense when women say a 19-year-old is a child. Well, no, a 19-year-old isn't a child. However, a 19-year-old teenage girl might be just as susceptible to grooming as a 17-year-old. That's why it seems arbitrary. A 19-year-old teenage girl, an 18-year-old teenage girl might be just as susceptible to manipulation and grooming as a 17 or 16-year-old girl by a man who only wants sex from her without marrying her, by a man that wants to pimp her out, that wants, whatever, all these things that are happening in our society. So what are we really talking about? What we're talking about is women being taken advantage of. And we're saying that it is especially heinous when a younger, more vulnerable girl is taken advantage of. Consent is not, I don't think that's really a real thing. I think that's like a feminist construct. And these like legal limits, I think that's very arbitrary. What we're talking about is younger girls that are sexually mature being taken advantage of. But take that up with a society that doesn't value marriage. Here's the difference. In the old days, girls would get married at 16. And I think far fewer people would object to that. Some people still might. Girls would get married at 15, 16, 17. But you recognize that that's different.
That's kind of the majority of that take there. And what I appreciate the most there is the idea of like obviously opening up to the fact of how it's arbitrary even in the United States. It's like 16, 17, 18 across the nation. Then you pointed to Europe as well too, differing laws there, some as low as 14. And then a different country that's even different than that. Some countries don't even have laws around things like that. But the connection to the feminist element is the most important and the most essential there. And it does begin to break away and take a aim at what he was largely talking about, which was like the misogynistic, the pedo, the creep, all of the charged language that has been used as the broad tool of women and continually is still used by women to browbeat men into submission, because those tags become so charged with socially negative energy and connotations, you will do anything but to be called that. This can be seen in the fact that you see these videos, and now there's memes about it, when it's like, oh shit, I'm like, I need to go home, but there's a girl 2 feet in front of me. And it shows like all the awkward ways like guys will try to like walk to like not seem like a creep. And it's because society has trained men to such a point that literally one moment, one time you can be caught on video. It doesn't matter how insanely deranged the woman is. If it is even halfway looked at, like you're being called out a creep or whatever, it will ruin you, your reputation socially and beyond there. And even a further extension of that is the Me Too movement, which was entirely destroyed by Amber Heard when she lied constantly about her actual roles and actions and tried to push away from her accountability in what she did to Johnny Depp. And that to me was like the most, that's what needs to be continually chipped away at, is how we got here. What were the changes from? And just this lack of idea, like what do you mean? Like for thousands and thousands of years, that's how people operated. Was there some kind of evolutionary event that occurred in humans in like the 1950s? Like I just didn't know about. Now women are all of a sudden completely different creatures than what they were like 200 years before that. Like, no, that's retarded. It came from first, second, third, fourth, and now fifth wave feminism that is continually trying to destroy the patriarchy and rebuild a matriarchy. And these are elements that go inside of that. Before I continue the ranting on that, I could do it all day. Your thoughts, Josh?
Dude, so kind of an aside, but not really. That clip to me perfectly encapsulates some of the cognitive dissonance that you're seeing with this like anti-Nick stuff. Nick is objectively, there is no debate, he is the greatest orator of our time. He has a way of like explaining things better than like you think them. Like we instinctively understand these concepts, but he has a way of putting them into words where it's like vindicated, because it's just like, it's so right. Like it's so obvious. You know what I mean? It's just like he's helping you discover these things that you always knew. You know what I mean? He's so good at that. And they still don't give him the benefit of the doubt. It's like there's no way to misinterpret what he's saying. It is as clear cut as it could ever be. But no. See, he said this. He should have said this word should have been this word. He's a spy.
Right. Well, and I'm glad that he brought up the whole. I think it was in this clip, might have been the one before. We brought up the canon law of like the Catholic Church, right? And then what you find is that men can't marry until they're 2 years older. Men have to wait until they're 16 to be married. Women are married off at 14 years old. And a lot of this does come again from people trying to apply like these just broken ideas, right? And I'm here to tell you right now, like I have for the last 2 fucking years. I need to stop cursing. I apologize. Women are not temporal equals to men. They are simply not. They are somewhere between a toddler and a man, but they are not men. And so when you look back at history with the postmodern feminist worldview, and you're trying to apply all these principles and sensibilities to things that literally didn't matter or exist back then, no wonder it doesn't make any sense, and it's entirely incoherent. And beyond that too, like I only take my morality from scripture and from natural law, revelation, God's word. Like I don't pull it from like what men decided like 200 years ago, what the Constitution says. It is God's law. Like that's where I imply the morality from. And so that's when, when I will go to look up, I'm like looking up scripture and verses about marriage, and it is in line with where the Catholic Church is at. It is talking about coming of age and of puberty. Now I get where people might have their obvious, like the reaction to that because people have been inundated and indoctrinated their entire lives with socially reinforced ideas of feminism and like what the idea of, when do people actually really grow up? And here lately, it's gotten so feminist that some people are talking about people shouldn't even get married until they're 26, right? Talking about how like, the brains really don't develop until they're like this old. And a lot of this stuff is built into the framework that is the idea of wanting to invert the God's natural order. But again, these things are so far away from the plate right now because we're too far away from even beginning to tackle some of those topics. And this is one of these times where it's like Nick is being attacked because he's so far ahead of everybody else. And it's sad in the element because it's like it follows like with I forget his name, but the guy who was the heliocentric, where he's like the universe revolves around the sun, not the earth. And they killed him, but he was right. And there's seemingly very similar reactions here to what's going on here as well. And he says it himself, like he's not condoning these things. He's talked about how it is exploiting and taking advantage of vulnerable girls. But to have this insane reaction and remove it from the context of like how humanity has operated for the majority, like we're not talking about the final 2% from the 1950s till now. He's talking about the 98% of the world existing before you and I even came into it. But people, I mean, these arguments seemingly are increasingly beyond or out of grasp of people, and I hate that for them.
Dude, yeah, it's literally like it makes so much sense because it's like the idea goes back to excuse me, like in a marriage-centered society, a naive, vulnerable 15, 16-year-old girl could fall prey to the wanderer. And, but like this, she's like, no, I love him. It's like, I don't know. You're married, so you've probably been forced to watch, what's that movie? Pride and Prejudice, that like there was something like that going on, but we're not like that anymore. The woman, they turn 18 and they're turning their bodies into an industry. The modern day woman is demonic. They're worse than Hitler.
Right. Well, I mean, that is one thing too. And people probably know this if they've listened to me for longer than, a couple weeks. It's like, I do find that feminism to me, and Nick says it in one of these clips as well. I think it is this one. Feminism is the Matrix. Like it increasingly has become clear to me that there is, obviously I talk about the GQ, I talk about it all the time. I talk about race realism all the time. To me, feminism is the greatest threat to human life on this earth. And we already see it. I mean, we can bring up the numbers one more time. And just from the late 1960s until today, it dwarfs the amount of people who have been killed if you combine all wars in human history together. It is it's a staggering figure. It's something to the effect of like 1.5 to 1.7 billion of all world wars combined and all wars in history versus the 2.8 billion who have been killed in the womb since 1967. That is insane. That is disgusting. And again, the future generations, if we ever make it out of this, they're going to look back at this generation and go, they were the most evil people who ever lived. They are worse than the Aztecs. They spilled more blood from altars but they had fluorescent lights, so it felt better because people called it healthcare. They'll look at these people, they will look at this generation as worse than any other people that ever walked this earth, period. Like point blank, you cannot kill that many people. And somebody put it in the chat earlier, there is an element of this, which is like, we're being replaced in the immigration, but it's like, well, do you think we'd be getting replaced if like there was, I don't know, maybe another like 50 million of us had they not been aborted in the womb? And then you stretch this to obviously the racial demographics of it too. But there are a lot of things, and feminism is a very deep and broad, robust thing. It is not simply just a woman wanting to have abortions. It's not simply a woman who thinks that she can vote. It is the language, it is the social fabric, it is the framing, it is the constructs, it is so much. And that to me, like that's where my wheelhouse is. It's like my forte. And that's what I spend the most time trying to deconstruct. And specifically to this element, I'm sorry to rant and pull over Josh a little bit, but the one thing I would point to is later in this long clip, this 18-minute clip with Nick, and later through the week as well, he's talking about these ideas of like how he doesn't want to be married. And part of the reason he doesn't want to be married is because like he doesn't want to just deal with it. And he thinks about his idea of marriage is like being nagged about what he says in a show. And so he thinks like that to him, it's like that's one of the most kind of like unappealable elements of it is thinking like, and he references these comments here, which is like, you think like a wife wouldn't divorce me after going through a week of like trying to make a nuanced argument about Epstein and the pedophilia? He'd be like, no, she'd probably leave my ass. But that's where I kind of come in and like step in and be like, no, because like here I am, obviously defending Nick. I talk with my wife all the time. If we are going to beat feminism, it's going to require men being dominant like myself in the marriage and being like, no, we are going to have a conversation. We are going to talk about these things, and I'm going to articulate it to you. This idea, and it is a little bit depressing. It's one thing I disagree with on Nick a little bit, but the marriages have to be what we want them to be, and it has to be actualized and realized by men who are capable of doing so. Which is why I was glad he turned and was pushing for things like looks maxing and such. Because in order to beat feminism, you're going to have men who can have wives and say what they want to say without feeling like their entire life will be taken from them. If we can't get over that hump, I don't want to hear anybody talking about the Second Amendment. I don't give a fuck. If you can't dominate your own wife as God intended you to, I don't want to hear about you taking over the American government. Point blank, period. But that's end of rant. End of 10th rant of the day.
Dude, let's go. This is the He-Man Woman Haters Club with Spanky and Alfalfa. I'm here for it, dude. That was great.
That's funny. Trust me, I'm not mad. I come off mad, though.
Well, dude, it's like, and it's so true, though, because like I'm not married. And when I think about getting married, when I think about that, I have the the hope. Oh, a godly woman and a godly marriage, and then we'll have children and things will be all hunky-dory and whatever. But literally every time I get into a relationship, every time I'm talking to someone, it is like the most stressful thing ever, because it's like, when is the shoe going to drop? And it inevitably does.
Yeah.
There's always something, and it's always even if, and that's where as I wish it could just be a fight, like I wish we could just hash it out, but it's just like, well, I don't know, like the little, just the chipping away at you over time.
This is why I want to, and I think I should. I've talked about it, I think off air a lot too. This is like where I want to step in, because like it didn't go like that for me. Like when I started dealing with like people have to understand this.
There's hope.
My wife, when I met her, was like I voted for Hillary. Now we've opened conversations of race realism, and we go deep into that, and we talk about it between husband and wife. Like, how many marriages do you think those conversations happen in? But it wasn't because I sat there and was chipped away. It's because I said, she would say this, and this isn't to harm her at all, bless her heart, because she's my number one supporter, and I love her with everything inside of me. She would say things, and it would be like, it'd be the dumbest shit I'd ever heard in my entire life. And I wouldn't get mad, but I'd just be like, you're wrong. What? No, you're wrong. Let me show you. This and this and this and this and this and this. And then, yeah, and if you have this example here, and that's the point. Like being studious, being able to articulate. you yourself can argue in defense of your own ideas. As difficult as it is, because women do have the advantage in the discussions. Women are they're skilled in manipulation, right? When you see like Poison Ivy in the DC comics, the women villains are the ones who are like the Pied Piper that get you to do what they want with their words. And it's because it's based on the reality of which generally women can dance circles around men. If we are to overcome feminism, men are going to have to be able to articulate themselves on a level like somebody like Nick Fuentes. You're going to have to be able to orate yourself into a marriage if you want that. And I know it's not for everybody, but I think if in the attempt to beat feminism, we have to have examples of men who are leading successful marriages with their wives, who are able to tackle things fully head on and aren't on leashes. And that's my opinion, and I think it's effective, and I think it'll work.
Amen, dude. I love it.
Word.
I don't know if this is blasphemous, but I was like, look, I'm just as sexist as God is. And they go, well, God's not sexist. And I was like, I agree, but he is by your standards.
Right.
And I remember that was a famous clip. That was one of my, this is one of Nick's best clips from years ago. He's talking about feminism, and he's talking about the rules about it in the Bible and like when people got married in the Bible. And he's like, it's the Bible. What do you know more than God?
Yeah. Right. Oh, you figured out the one thing that God didn't have right.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. That's crazy to be born in the same time as you, dude. That's a revelation. You want to write the next book in the Bible? Like cover up for that? Are you Joseph Smith by chance?
The book of Amy or something like that,
yeah. Yeah. But dude, I mean, it's clear as day, dude. All right, everybody, let's turn to 2 Timothy. Oh, no, not this one. Oh. All right, guys, skip chapter 1, 2. You know what? Okay, on to Philippians. Like it's such a joke, man. And there's a serious problem. People have been saying rhino, Republican in name only. Dude, there is a problem of Sino called Christian in name only, dude. That is the problem that plagues us in today's day and age. But again, to finish this off on the Epstein thing, this was the final take, and this is coming from Friday. This is Nick Fuentes on his villain arc. He has completely come full circle and is now accepted his fate.
Big Head sent $50. Mom just validating. The beard mocks. Thanks for starting earlier than my bedtime. My Epstein opinion evolved from hearing your perspective. Girls become sexually curious in HS, especially ones with daddy issues and have no guidance. No self-worth, but yearn for love and don't know where to find it. All that being said, no e-girls.
So true. Thank you very much. W. Epstein, look, I'm on my villain arc, okay? Sometimes you got to be the villain. Epstein's my boy, dude. Let's just be honest. Epstein was cool as fuck. There, I said it. What are you going to do? Go ahead, cancel me. Yeah, I said it. Jeffrey Epstein was cool as fuck. Now what? Go ahead, cancel me. Do it. So sometimes we have to be the villain. Sometimes we have to be on a villain arc. That's okay. I'll be a little unpopular. I've been unpopular before. I like it better. Sometimes it's time for a little heel turn.
Veronica sent $100. Big Heads.
So, your thoughts on the villain arc?
Dude, it's so funny. I don't know. They're probably on Twitter, but on Instagram, I see Epstein edits all the time. And it's him on the sailboat. It's him, and it's like summer vibes. And it's, the pic I'm talking about where he's got that white boy smirk. And it's like, yeah. Dude. And here's the thing. A Jewish guy running a blackmail operation, he had to be charming as heck, dude. Right. That he was and that's the thing. We're acting
shaving his
like
curls every day.
Yeah, we're filing the horns like a Hellboy. We're acting like he's like, yeah, well, you want to come to my island? He was like, dude, come on, man. Epstein was cool. And we have another clip. I don't we got to get your take for it, but this is nothing new. This is nothing new. Nick has said stuff like this before. The normies crashed out because they can only hold one. They cannot rotate three-dimensional objects in their head. We'll get to that in a second. But dude, I'm on the sailboat with Ghislaine and Jefe Blanco.
Dude, the funniest thing ever was, I forget where that came from, but that original post about rotating things in your head. It's like the top comment was like, how do you start seeing things in your head? Like, dude. But the thing is like, I shouldn't be shocked. How long have we known that the majority of people don't have an inner monologue? Like that to me is like, that by itself, dude, equal rights. You telling me somebody doesn't have an inner monologue, doesn't have the same rights as me? Get the F out of here, dude. They can't think to themselves. Yeah, I know. No, not even at all. And we should do it in tiers too. It'd be like, how 3D is the apple you see right now? Do you see color? do tricks on it. Like, like the F one yet. But it's true. And I mean, it's like, that is like where you would get these kind of legal distinctions, which is like people ultimately have distinctions that separate them from other people. And I think at a very base level, a lot of people can recognize the differences. You might feel it in your bones. When you're talking to somebody like, oh, this person can't think. Dude, there's no voice in this person's head. And those things do imply that they would be less accountable. They would be less responsible. If they are just, in general, less capable, that insinuates and implies all down the line that they are just less potent, like all the way down the road. But they're not ran at all. Going to your clip, where is it? The one on the Hunter Biden thing, just to show you this happened like what, 2-3 years ago.
So this is if you go to Friday, you've got it ready.
Hunter Biden, cool.
Yeah, Hunter Biden, cool. So, like I said, I've been watching Nick Fuentes since 2018, and I remember this was like 21, 22 when all of the basic bitch normie conservatives were hooting and hollering about the Biden laptop from hell. And it's like, dude, he's been president for 2 years. It doesn't matter anymore. And people are crying about how, it was the same thing. It was, oh, Hunter Biden's a pedophile. Yep. And Nick Fuentes doubled down. He's like, bro, Hunter Biden doesn't know who you are. He's in a liminal space, dude. Yeah.
Dude, Hunter Biden has no idea where he is at all, dude, for the majority of the time. But it does go down to that, right? Epstein had aura. Here's the Hunter Biden clip, though.
Cringier. Hunter Biden is smoking crack and having sex with his hot niece. Okay, I know that's very wrong. That's very wrong. That's very immoral. I know. But it is what it is. His niece is hot. And then he got Don Jr. is dating Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's not only older than him, but older than his father's wife. Okay? So who's cooler? You're not going to make me not like Joe Biden because his son is cool and had sex with his hot niece. What's cringy?
So this is obviously like nothing new from Nick, right? This idea of like just being just a general provocative nature of himself. And that's part of it, right? It's like breaking through these taboos. And it's largely been people like, and largely Nick himself, who's been breaking a lot of these taboos, largely moving the conversation forward on things like being pro-white, Hitler. And next things, it looks like we're going to be attacking some of the strongest taboos of feminism, hopefully. But it's just funny. Like, but people would take this and like they'll take it as like the deepest signal. They're like, was he telegraphing to us like he works for the CIA? Like, how many times did he blink? Was it 3 or 4? 4? And it's like, oh, I can't, dude. Like at a certain point, I'm just like, I give up.
6 to 7 times.
Yeah, 6, 7.
Yeah,
just being
dude. Yeah, and
good.
And that's another thing is it's like you shouldn't joke about things like that. Oh, okay, all right. Woke department, Me Too movement over here. We have to be better than that. We have to be better than that. Okay, it's a joke. All right, you know, if we can joke about the Holocaust, then we also can joke about Epstein, okay? and Hunter Biden. All right, Trump's golden shower. All right, it's all on the table, baby.
Well, the funny thing is, it's like, but the statement's true. Like, how did Epstein run the ring, the blackmail ring, if he wasn't a charismatic person who was able to manipulate people into doing things? Like, of course he had aura. We were already past that point. We know that he had to have had aura. Like, there's no other way that you get people to do these things and connect all these dots. I'm with Trump. I'm with
Yeah.
Prince Andrew. Like, come on, of course. It's
Dude,
like he's the guy with the
and think about
connections. Ring, ring. Hotline bling, dude.
Yo. And dude, and that's the thing. You talk with boomers and they're like, oh, okay, it's not all Jews. And they're always like, well, I know a really cool guy. You know,
Yeah.
that's Jeffrey Epstein, bro. Epstein was the cool one. That's how they got him in on it. They were like, hey, dude, you're like a failed teacher. You're like a preschool principal. We're gonna make you, we're gonna give you an island because you're the best one of us, and we're gonna and you are gonna be filming like 4 United States presidents having sex with 17-year-olds. And he's like, okay, cool. I get a boat too, you know. Of course, yeah, you can have whatever you want, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, can you imagine Ben Shapiro trying to be the one that runs it? Okay, guys. Okay, gang. Okay, gang. I got about. I promise you, she's 18, gang. It's like, dude, no, like it wouldn't work.
No. Dude, you'd be getting dark Ben Shapiro back from like when he was a teenager and he had the katana and the like leather jacket, you know? He'd be like on the walkway of the Lolita Express, like, come on, gang, let's go, you know?
Dude, it would be.
I have a surprise for you.
I mean, but just think about it. Like it obviously wouldn't work. Think about the blue collar, rare build Jew. Think about him trying to connect the dots for these people. Dude, you'd be like, bro, what is this thing?
Yeah.
Why is this thing talking to me? Not to be
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
but if you get it, you get it. Watch Tyler Oliveira's video about Nerlus Yoel. Is that how you say it? Nerlus Yoel.
I thought it was Joel.
Yeah, but there's a word in
Joel.
front of it. It's like Nerlus. They pronounce it with a Y. It's like Nerlus Yoel or something like that.
You keep talking like that, you're gonna summon a demon, Atlas. A Jewish
Yeah,
demon.
Yeah, if you speak enough Yiddish, the furniture will start floating in the room because you're more than likely
Yeah,
cursing something.
literally.
Thank you, merely read. Curious Joel. That's what I thought. Curious Yoel. Whatever they speak down there, it ain't America, and they need deported. But that basically gets us through the whole rundown of where the take started from and where it ended on the Epstein thing. And of course, Nick is right. Yes, you were all wrong. And once again, I find myself here. Waiting, and
you know what? We need to put the Nick Fuentes apology form in the description of the Groyper Report.
I need to have it like on standby.
A nightly feature.
I'll flashbang the screen with it every so often, like loud sound.
Yeah.
Sign here. Have like the e-verify button pop up. Like a digital
Yeah.
check. That's funny.
Oh, dude, that's gonna be once we deport all the Mexicans. ICE is gonna be like, papers, show us your papers, and Zeb and Marcus and Moto is gonna have to show their Nick Fuentes apology form.
That's funny.
Oh gosh.
We remembered your crimes.
Yes.
It's like the tribunal. I did remember I wanted to go from this though. So we're going to revisit back on Tuesday. So we're going to get serious again. This is actually going to go to the Iran war. And now this is, I think, the most important because the most kind of flip-flopping has happened, I think, on the Iran war. And I think there's a lot of kind of confliction of like people really don't have an idea of what's going on. And so just to give you an idea, obviously, Polymarket, I believe it's on Tuesday or Wednesday, had finally broken the 50% mark. And Polymarket was leaning that we were going to bomb Iran earlier in the week, and it didn't happen. Now, however, the statement that you got from the Trump administration was along the lines of, well, they're backing off on the protesters, they're handling them in a civil way, so we're not going to do it. However, the reporting from Israel is coming that they are actually actively petitioning the White House to hang on for the strike because they want more time to prepare. There's a bunch of like conflicting reports of like what's really the reason. Are we backing away? Are we actually going to do it? And I thought this was really great dissertation of what Nick thinks will happen if we do ultimately end up engaging Iran. So here's that clip.
Want to do a democracy promotion strike and maybe hit some of their missiles too. It's about this orchestrated escalation, which will lead inevitably to a decisive confrontation. And what does that mean? It means a straight up war. Because how are you going to decapitate the Iranian regime? It's not like Venezuela where you kidnap one guy. You can't just shoot their missiles from the air. This is a hardened, fortified regime. They are underground. They build their missiles underground in underground cities. And they're not these little tunnels like Hamas digs. They're actually like cities. These are fortresses underground, and they are dug in. You want to kidnap the Ayatollah? We don't even know where he is. Maduro, they clocked him. They knew. The Ayatollah, they couldn't find him last year. So this is not Venezuela. This is not Assad. This is not Gaddafi. This is a serious country with a serious capability and military. And if you want to overthrow this government, it's going to involve armed resistance, probably from the Kurds, from Balochistan, from ISIS, from maybe some kind of liberal opposition, supplemented by U.S. air power. But even that won't be enough. I really, truly believe that in the end, it is going to demand some kind of U.S. ground force. And I know that sounds crazy and it sounds unlikely, but you will not achieve a regime change without actually putting the boots on the ground. You cannot defeat an army by just dropping some bombs. If you can't do it against Hezbollah, you're not going to do it against Iran. If you can't do it against Assad, you can't do it against Iran. And what I'm worried about, again, is that we are set in this tit for tat, reciprocal escalation for which there is no off-ramp. And Israel is holding our hand, walking us down the road towards an inevitable war. Now, what happened this week is that the protests got crushed, and now it seems that if the United States bombs Iran, a couple of things are going to happen. First of all, Iran is no longer completely vulnerable. And if we hit Iran now, it might actually rally the pro-regime forces. Bombing Iran's government might actually have the opposite of the intended effect. So that's one. Two, and this is really important. If we bomb Iran, Iran will retaliate against U.S. bases, maybe against Israel, depending on who hits them and where and when. Iran is going to strike back against Israel, certainly against U.S. bases. And if they launch hundreds of missiles, if it is a legitimate retaliation, you're going to need an aircraft carrier. You're going to need destroyers there to intercept and detect these missiles. If you want to put on a competent, successful defense of Israel or Al Udeid in Qatar or other U.S. bases in the region, you're going to want actually a real force package, which we do not have. There's no carrier strike group there. We don't have enough boats over there. You want to go to war with Iran or risk a war with Iran, you need some element of deterrence. And even in April 24, in July 24, when we were at risk of intervening against Iran, Biden brought out the big guns to deter a more forceful retaliation. Without those military assets in the region, theoretically, we're pretty vulnerable. Israel's pretty vulnerable. So do they attack Iran, risk an escalation without the necessary force package? You risk actually this reversal where you galvanize the pro-regime forces. And so now Israel and all the Gulf countries are lobbying Washington to hold back on a strike.
Before we get into much, I want to just go feature this one comment here from Janice Phillips. She says, "Hi boys, I'm late and tired, but I'm here to leave a like and give you darling some viewing minutes." Thank you very much, Janice. We appreciate that. And if you have not already, make sure you do smash the like button. Unless you are homosexual, then I understand why you wouldn't like this kind of content. But to Iran, this is something that's been well known, I think, inside the dissident space for a hot minute, is just the level of which how difficult actually engaging Iran, and especially to the tune of a regime change. And to the tune of a regime change, Nick articulates very well in there, requires a lot more force than simply what we did with Venezuela and Maduro. It would be a lot more involved and hands-on, people on the ground and other systems at play than it would be to simply do a 4-minute operation and we basically bitch slap Maduro in the middle of the night, and then now he's in the United States. And it's to that effect that I continually find myself, maybe you guys find this all the time, where in kind of common conversations I'll get with a lot of individuals, I'll call them my normie friends, but they pay attention to politics, seemingly have built this idea up that Iran is like no different than like Hamas. Or like when they think of Iran, they think of like a bunch of these same people shooting AK-47s. And what you have to understand is like, just looking at literally the last like few years and what we've been dealing with, is you have to understand Iran, despite the world monitoring them, demonizing them, built multiple nuclear facilities underground and enriched uranium beyond the capacities of what Japan is able to. The people and the force of which we are going to be dealing with in Iran is so a cut above anything else that we kind of have bombed in terms of like with the Syria escalation and otherwise and the other kind of groups. It is such a step up from what we have been doing. And I want to really drive that point home for people to like, when they're talking about this, it will not be no easy thing as like dropping a bomb off here and there. And part of it does go to their situational, the geography there, which is the mountains. But if we engage Iran in that level, it is going to be a long running effort and operation to actually achieve what they would want done, which would be regime change. And to that effect, that is something to truly fear. But Josh.
Yeah, dude, it's one of those things where it's like you summed it up perfectly. This is not like the image you think of the Iraq war, where it's like shanty towns with a bunch of towel heads running around with guns from the 80s against the might of the dude. This is a sophisticated military. It is not going. And think about Iraq. We're still there, dude. Iran, dude. This. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to go down how you think. And honestly, dude, like I wish, and Nick has laid this out before, I wish we would just be realistic about the Middle East, pin Israel and Iran against each other. But like why are we taking one side? Why can't we take a page out of Saudi Arabia's book? Saudi Arabia does deals with Russia, China, and the United States.
No.
So okay, we're gonna get not do deals with Iran for what? This was actually an argument I had with my boss at the radio station. Was I argued on the show? He goes, "What would it take for you to believe that like we just can't have peace with Iran?" And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, because it was arguing, well, they're like this radical Islamist state that just wants death to America. And I'm like, okay, if they're so gung-ho about the Ayatollah and their radical Islamic belief and they hate infidels, how come they're doing business with Russia and China, which just so also happen to be infidels? This was the argument. Well, they hate America so much, they're willing to do business with those infidels to get back at us. That's the level of like brainwashing we have going on.
Yeah, and the like hold like simultaneous beliefs, right? Like that's what you hear about the death to America and why it's important to Americans. But then you also hear the other way around, which is like, well, they're after the Jews first and foremost, but then after us, they'll be coming for you guys. It's like, so which is it? Are they coming after you guys? Or are they coming after both of us? Like, or like, what's the actual real reason here? But as I've explained before, and you can find many other people telling you too, like this is built off the back of changing the narrative around like what the war is about. And and it's in that light, right? Hate America, or because they hate Judaism, or they hate infidels, and it's in the idea that it's from territory to terror, and it's in this playbook, which was to change all of the language. So when you're reporting on these things, that what's omitted largely is the real dispute of the land, which is largely what's been the entire story of Israel, from territory to terror. And I think they're still obviously using that playbook. You can see it day in and day out, the way they're trying to demonize, Islam in the United States. And no, I am no fan of Islam whatsoever. I'm no fan of Muslims. I don't think Muslims should exist in America whatsoever. But the nuance in that is the argument that Islam posing any level of threat beyond Ilhan Omar or Zohran Mamdani is absolutely batshit insane. That is as far as they are making it. And it is as far as our politicians are allowing it to. It would be very easy, like, and we already have seen with the criminal referral of Ilhan Omar and her supposed papers of marrying her brother. And this is the thing I would say too, and this is kind of maybe comprehensively round up a lot of these other points here too. I wanted to say this earlier. The Islam problem is well within the bounds of power right now. The government could easily clean that shit up. But in addition to that, and before I lose this thought, what I really want to drive home, because I know we're getting close to the end of the show, is when you think about the fact of like what really kind of set off this recent kind of flurry of storm in the new kind of news cycle was Charlie Kirk getting shot in the neck. And ever since Charlie Kirk has been shot in the neck, taking out one of maybe the most sincere individuals in this space, despite the disagreements that I had with him. You know what the answer from the administration and the people who are supposedly on our side is? Has been to do literally fucking nothing. And what we get now is, as Nick talked about later in the week too, and we might get to one of these clips, is the fact that Trump is once again, just like how he did in 2020 with the Summer of Love, is floating out this idea of well, maybe we'll do the Insurrection Act. Well, don't do it too much. The National Guard will come for you. And it's not happening. And there's no reason at this point that Tim Walz is not garnered up, that Zohran Mamdani has not been gathered up, that all these individuals, the Philadelphia DA who threatened ICE, the Philadelphia sheriff who threatened ICE, all of these people should be arrested. Like, what are we doing? And when you look at that, I mean, like, how does that not piss you off? How does it not piss you off that not only was it not good enough for them to kill Charlie Kirk, that now when they actively tried to harm an ICE agent because a dumb woman thought that she had the gall and the audacity and the right to just show up in the middle of a federal operation to give a cop a piece of her mind, they're now once again burning Minnesota to the ground. Where is the Republican Party? What lesson was learned in the last 4 years? Nothing at all. And this is obviously not a message to many people in the audience who obviously probably feel the same about Trump and the Trump administration. But when you are around someone who's a plain truster, like, you need to let them feel that heat, because they need to be the ones who are chipping out on the Trump administration too. There's nothing that has been good enough yet by the Trump administration. We are all doing this dancing game once again of being beautiful losers. And here we are wearing egg on our face one more time because the guy who's supposedly Hitler will refuse to use the military to actually quell a legitimate insurrection. And it is a literal fucking joke. And obviously that's a little bit of a sidebar from what we were actually talking about, but I'll turn it back over to Josh.
No, dude, you hit the nail on the head here. And you know what it is? This is exactly what our government and is occupied by. And I'll use the journalism thing as an example, because you brought up on your stream on Offensively Accurate the other day the Tyler Oliveira thing. And we're talking about how, like, Nick Shirley, Tyler Oliveira, where are the journalists? Why is the New York Times, why is the Washington Post, where are they in all this? Now, obviously, we say how it's like, okay, there's an agenda and they're not covering it for political reasons, which there's absolutely truth to that. But there's another component to this that people don't often talk about, and it's this, is these people, what they really care about is status and fancy vacations. What they really want to do is just go to Turks and Caicos and have a cool job that they can brag about. So what do? They become journalists. And they go, oh, I'm a Washington Post reporter. I'm a New York Times reporter. But then when they're sitting in their office, they don't really give a shit about it. It is simply, I'm here so I can say that I was here when I go to a party later. And that's what the Trump administration is. That's what Stephen Miller is. That's what all these bimbos are. It is Barbie goes to the press box. You know what I mean? Yeah. Barbie goes to the White House press briefing. That's exactly what our government is occupied by. So when we are actually dealing with problems, they're only doing the bare minimum to appease us, to appease the base. And then when shit hits the fan, when some idiot gets his eye shot out and another one gets mag dumped in the face, it's, oh, God, what are we going to do now? Now I've got to get off my ass. Are you telling me that I have to get back on a plane and leave the Bahamas? Damn it. That cannot be understated. That's what's going on.
In the same element of the journalism, you brought up Tyler Oliveira and, him doing Nick Shirley, but to the Jews. What another element to the journalism stuff is when you think about it, like right in the aftermath of the Kirk assassination, obviously the way that Erica Kirk was behaving, all of the tells, most people's intuition told them like there's something fake or artificial, like something's off at the bare minimum. And what we're finding out, 4 months after the fact, is supposedly, and also with the help of Ana Paulina Luna letting it loose on, I think, PBD when she wasn't supposed to, that Erica Kirk was in the middle of a custody battle and a custody dispute with Charlie Kirk's parents, who also nobody has heard from since the event. And so so from my perspective, I'm somebody who's like, I have very limited access to capital. I wish I didn't, right? But I'm a broke you. And Andrew Tate probably make fun of me, and I'm trying not to be. But when I look at the fact that there's Candace Owens and Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh and Savannah Hernandez and John Doyle, and there's all of these people who have all this money, they have all the views. Not a single one of them could spend time to like investigate that. That was somehow omitted for months on end, and no one even thought to look at it. And the entire time, the whole mainstream conservative space is like, you cool? How dare you talk about Erica Kirk like that? She's a great stand-up person. Really? Are you kidding me? Because the way we're looking at it right now is Erica Kirk's almost no different than Renee Nicole Good, who also lost custody of her kids. And we're going to sit here and like moralize between the two. Like, we either have to have principles or we don't. But the main takeaway from that, though, is these people who have all this capital, all these access to resources, they have employees, they're in the process too. They're built into the process. The Daily Wire probably has contacts, the New York Post, etc. I don't. I'm just a guy who talks too much shit on YouTube, and I've given up my power level, right? But none of those people, they don't have any connects. They can't debug any more information about it. And you can come to two conclusions. Either one, they're intentionally like burying it, or two, which is probably the simpler explanation, they just don't care. They're not here because they believe in this shit. They're here because they make money from it, because somebody helped them get there. Or if you're Ben Shapiro, or if you're anybody like him, you do have a goal in it, which is why it's actually, you hear all the time from Nick, at least he's taking his own side. And you can see that, you can say that about almost every single person who's oppositional to us. But you know who you can't say that about is the people who are supposed to represent us. And we're sitting here all the time going, God, please, will you take our own side? Will you represent me for 2 damn seconds? All the money in the world, dude, and no one could find out until 4 months later Erica Kirk lost custody of her children. Absolute bullshit. The journalism space is dead. Alt media is close to being dead. And we're at this point where it's like a zero trust society. It's becoming very, very hard to trust anybody at all. And from that point, it's anybody's game. If chaos starts to dominate, I really don't know what to tell you. But I feel like we're at that point.
Dude, it's one of those things where it's like, truly our only hope is in Christ. I mean, genuinely, it's which is encouraging, but it's also terrifying, and it is frustrating because it's like I talked about this before, how I was not really invested in politics until Donald Trump came on the scene, because he made me feel like change was possible.
Right.
And here we are, almost exactly 10 years later, and we're worse off.
Right. And like people have been saying, right, one of the biggest scams, it'll go down, one of the biggest scams in probably political history. And where are we? What ultimately is better today than where we were at in 2016? Like, is there something nominal or like could you think of that you could play? Like, I would say the freedom of speech element, but like, are we going to credit Trump with that? Like, that was Elon. And what gave birth to the generational run was the opening up on X, was the continual people who were finding this account called Autumn Groyper and going, why is this thing so based? Only to find out, oh, holy shit, that's Nick Fuentes. Or a few months later, after that account was banned, when Candace Owens came on the scene, people are going, dude, this guy's like on the ball. It is sad. And, you know, and once you get to that certain point, when you're bottoming out where society goes, in terms of like where the trust element is, I don't know how you can ever recover that. It's the question I ask all the time, which is like, let me ask you, Josh, what could Candace Owens do that would make you trust her again?
If I never saw her again, if she became a true mother to her children.
That's funny.
That it's one of those things where it's like, what would make me trust Candace Owens again? She'd have to, at the bare minimum, she'd have to say that she lied and she did it for money and she regrets it. And, you know, maybe I should get out of the space, but I'm not going to, and I'm genuinely going to try to improve. And I mean, I'd still be skeptical. I wouldn't forgive her, so to speak, but that would score some points.
Yeah. And I think even if she were to do that, I still would like not trust anything that she would say. or I would always take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing is true of like all of these people. And then you think about the government at large in and of itself. It's like, I don't know. And I think the only way you would be able to at a large scale would be giving like this extreme comprehensive like 9/11 commission on Jeffrey Epstein, where it's like these people are continually tried for years in and years out. And it's like a multi-year thing. People are paid out in lawsuits. But we're just not seeing that. We're just not seeing the conviction for it. We're seeing the opposite, actually. We're seeing fighting full force to like prevent anything from moving forward. And also like titillating about, you know, we're going to insurrection act. We're going to get you, Tim Walz. And then Minnesota's actively burning to the ground. And, you know, there's an element of the astroturfing of it too. I think that's actually more accurate now that we've kind of got further into the weeds with this, which is, I don't want to hear Nick Shirley's, you know, struggle to speak English for longer than 4 minutes. And he's probably a decent guy, but I'm honest. Like he struggles to speak. I don't want to see another interview of Nick Shirley. I want to see Somalians thrown in bags, stacks even, and yeeted from this nation with the force of 1,000 suns. That's what I want to see. I don't care about what Nick Shirley thought the second time he went back. I don't care what PBD thinks about the third store they went to. I want to see ICE breaking down doors, dragging these people out by the skin of their teeth, by their hair. I don't care. But I want to see justice. And at the end of the day, that is what this country is begging for, dying for. The reason why a lot of this is so flawed is the lack of justice. The reason why people struggle is because of the two-tier system of justice. There's a lot of things that goes down to the fact that there is a massive lack of justice. And for a lot of people, when you think about it in the court case, think about how that bothers people. When there's a clear wrongdoing that occurs, and you see this in like, it plays out in movies all the time, but the person gets off and it sits with the family member, right? It's like the dad of the daughter who like, and the guy got off and it just like, it festers in him. He's like, I have to enact justice. That's like where society is right now. It's like, we're all sitting here and it's like, the justice never came, but we're all like, everyone's like one bad day away from being a vigilante. And that's really unfortunate because it's going to make people do a lot of like poor decisions. But I can just see it in the psychosis of people, the way they interact with things. We need justice, man.
And you're absolutely right. That's something that Nick has talked about before, especially during the Biden era, which he was like, to just suppress everybody. These people don't go away. And when you create this sense of helplessness in them, that only festers.
Right.
And then it spills over in horrific ways. And we don't want that on our side either.
Right.
And excuse me. And I don't think that is a foregone conclusion. I don't think that is what must happen or that is inevitable, but it's out there. I think you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. And I think that you can see it a bit more with like, not Patriot Front, but when you see some of these like individual protesters who are like counter protesting, against ICE. Now, somebody was saying this guy had to have been a plant, and I'm almost kind of hesitant to repeat what he said, you know, at the protest, but he was screaming. I mean, he was like screaming, and he said something, and I'll paraphrase, but he had said something to the effect of like, we executed one of you yesterday. And he's screaming that at the ICE protesters in Minnesota. And I think that you can see this kind of cruel, not performative, because it's coming from people, but you can see this cruel nature coming out of people. Where it is like they will stoop to whatever low it was required to take the eye for the eye. That's kind of where we don't want to be. We want to circumvent violent revolution, right? I say this all the time. But we need justice for that.
Words.
We have about 10 minutes left. Was there another clip you wanted to go to?
Good question. Another Nick Fuentes clip. What's your over under on the Bears winning the Super Bowl?
That was funny. I thought it was funny he even commented on that. I'd be okay with it, honestly. I have a really good friend who I worked with when I used to bartend, who's a huge Bears fan. So
yeah,
I'd be happy for him to see him win. To be honest,
team's
already out.
I didn't even know. Like I didn't even know until Nick said anything that the Bears were in Chicago or from Chicago. That's how far removed from sports I am. Literally nobody in my even distant family watches sports. So yeah, but here's a good clip that I thought was very funny, and it kind of touches on the head a lot of what we talked about tonight. So it's on Wednesday, and it's in their mind, Hitler was Ron Paul.
It's Ron Paul aspect here. Yes. So this is again going back to the element of like all of the, well, quote, low IQ anti-Semites, but also all of the people who are like anti-Israel from the left side, from the left-wing perspective, who recently started watching Nick. And it is funny too. This is a great clip.
Is invading Greenland. A protester gets shot, and you get all these people crying about it. It's like, I'm sorry, weren't you just posting a Hitler edit yesterday? You do know who Hitler was, right? All these knuckleheads for the past 2 years, it's just AI translated Hitler speeches. I don't know, he sounds pretty good to me. Posting the edits. Hitler fought for his people. He fought the bankers, blah, blah. All these Hitler apologists. Trump invades a neighboring country, kills a protester. All these people are crying. I don't like the government killing people. You can't just invade another country. We got to be consistent. Do you know who Hitler was? And then you realize these people are completely delusional. They know fucking nothing. They don't know anything about politics. They don't even know anything about Hitler. They don't know anything about anything. And so people see some edgy memes on Instagram, and that is the extent of their education. These fucking dumb idiots, they got red pilled a year ago, and the extent of their political education is doom scrolling on Instagram, liking these AI translated Hitler speech edits. They think Hitler was like Ron Paul. There's this whole, of course, some of the World War II narrative is, as we know, exaggerated or fake. They have their own fake World War II narrative where Hitler saved his country and then he was going to liberate the Christians from Jewish communism because he loved Slavic people. He was going to fight the Soviets to free his beloved. He loved Slavic people. He was going to save them from Jewish communism. And they would hold parade like, no, sorry, that's actually not what Hitler was. So in their mind, Hitler is literally a Ron Paul-esque figure. Hitler was like a center-left economic populist who wanted to take over the government to leave everybody alone. Hey, man, I just want to get Jewish banking out of my country and leave me alone. They say that Hitler was nice to Jesse Owens. He wanted to build an empire based on a racial hierarchy, but people go, whoa, but America was racist too. This is literally like Soviet propaganda. This is literally just whataboutism. He wanted to take over half of Europe and settle it with racially superior Aryans and enslave the inferior races. He wanted like a racial empire. And these people think that, no, he was like a wholesome Chungus nationalist who wasn't racist and so misunderstood. It's crazy. And you go, what? So somebody is on the wrong page here. I don't think we're all on the same page about this. Because we're talking about like a progressive right-wing regime, like building an empire. We're talking about strength and excellence. And we're kind of getting into some of these themes, and these people are like, what the fuck? I think that we should stop paying our taxes, and I don't like the government getting bigger, and I don't like cops killing people, and I don't like foreign interventions. It's like, okay, so you're just a liberal. Like, you're just a fucking liberal. And you think Hitler was a liberal, and that's insane. So that's why I call them low IQ anti-Semites. They don't even know. I tweeted that and they said, wow, he took the check. It's like, no, you don't understand. I'm saying you're a bad Hitler enthusiast. I'm saying you don't understand your own lore. So anyway, well, we're going to move on. We'll take a look at the super chats. If these people knew who Hitler was, they would not be posting that shit. Because these people are all just like disgruntled liberal normies. They're just like Ron Paul heads, Bernie bros, vaguely populist normies that are too online, and they're projecting that ideology onto Hitler and saying, well, he was just a misunderstood guy like me. Not quite.
He was very much like Ron Paul. I know people kind of miss this all the time. But,
Hitler was wholesome 100. Hitler was wholesome Chungus. Let's be honest.
He was trying to bring feminism to Germany.
Hitler was like, guys, let's, let's just get along, man. We're going to get these Jewish bankers out of here, and then we're going to smoke pot or whatever.
Right.
Because he did meth or something,
Yeah. Well, and again, a lot of this does come from like the memes that you see, where it's like, it's like him, it'll be like a side by side. It'll be like, Hitler with puppies, and it's like some other person with an animal. And it's like, they like build it into this idea that he was like somehow like this like left wing, or rather I should say progressive, when really in reality it's like that's not even anywhere really honestly close to the truth. However, there are things ultimately that he did do that you can like take from, look at, and be like, wow, maybe we should institute those things as well. But
can you imagine what would have happened if Hitler wasn't a vegetarian? If he truly maxed out on like a proper diet, we might be speaking German right now.
Yeah. Well, he would have probably needed more meth. He'd have been a bigger guy. He would have needed more meth for the person.
Hitler, if Hitler ate meat and took more meth, there would be footage of him like tearing Winston Churchill's like head open by the mouth, like Black Noir style, like we'd be taught that in schools,
He would be, it would like the final stand would have went a whole bit different, right? It'd have been like, Hitler, and there's like 30 people surrounding him, and it's like the scene in Avatar, and he's like flipping everyone around. It's like, oh my gosh, he's like the strongest ever.
Him and the Emperor of Japan would be on like one of those skinny canoes, and they'd throw Winston Churchill in the water, and they'd have those like 80-foot long harpoons, and they throw it into Churchill's
They're like the fire
back.
batons. Yeah, first one to fall in loses. You die.
They'd get FDR, and with bamboo sticks, they'd be thwacking his legs and going higher. It's like, let's see when you start to feel something.
Hitler wins by default because he wears the knee highs. It's like my secret weapon the whole time. What I did want to say and bring up on this, though, was Lucas Gage gave a statement on his Telegram, just to give like a little bit of because some people were asking, like, with all of these kind of recent takes from Nick and this kind of, he was at first like seemingly like, calming down, like let's clean this up. He's now reverted back to a bit more of where he's normally been, his normal self. I think he's kind of maybe even probably moved away from siding with leftists, just given how deranged they are. But I think a lot of what you're seeing with these like takes and the way he's being very provocative, very antagonistic with the super chats, and in the words of Lucas Gage, is he's refining his following. And I think he's doing so because of this generational run. He has amassed an audience that is now 5 to 6 times larger than what it previously was about 9-10 months ago. And the majority of those people are acting as if they know Nick, or they're acting as if like they are, they are full blown like, I'm a Groyper, I'm an America Firster, and they like don't even have an idea of what it's even about. And they're coming out with like these flip floppings and whatnot. So I do think, and I kind of agree with that, I think that probably is an element of the strategy here, which is to like begin to refine what America First is. And especially because he made a comment on Tuesday, I think, where he was talking about how we are becoming refugees in our own movement. And I think there is some certain point where I think the Groypers may actually be outnumbered now. I think there are more people under the anti-Israel umbrella that aren't like Christian nationalists or, would be just nationalist or white nationalists, would fall closer to where Nick is at than are not. And I think that's a serious problem, because I think that allows for strong co-opting towards the left and moving away from right-wing ideals, especially if you get candidates like James Fishback, who are very prominent and come on, and not like to say that James Fishback is left wing, but think about if somebody came in with the same power and aura as Fishback, but was a left winger. They were like, F Israel, we shouldn't do this, F Israel, but they were also like, and I think women should be allowed to have healthcare and stuff. He would probably be that'd be someone to tangle with, right? It'd be someone that would be like, he'd be really hitting all the notes on the left wing. A lot of people on the right wing would be like, well, at least he's anti-Israel. and he would garner votes. And I think that's a very powerful force and something to reckon with moving forward, seeing how, and again, we'll look at how Casey and also Fishback does as well too. But that brings us to the end of the Groyper Report. Before I let Josh speak, one thing I want to get to is the fact that we still don't have the super chats or the memberships, and we are waiting for YouTube to respond back to us. It shouldn't be too much longer, I would hope, but just to update you guys on why we don't have any super chats or anything still. But I'll go ahead and turn over to Josh before we sign off.
Yeah, I thought great week. You know, Nick Fuentes is back. He didn't miss a show, and each one of the shows was fantastic this week. Venezuela, Iran, and Epstein, bunch of good stuff. I thought it was a great show tonight. We covered a lot, and I am excited to see where this movement goes and talk with you guys next week. Also on Nav, excuse me. Things have been shaken up a little bit. We're dealing with some stuff behind the scenes. So we're going to do kind of like an impromptu live stream of Real Talk tomorrow at 3 on the Nav network. So go check that out.
Well, that was like the first I was hearing of that. But yes, make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you check out Real Talk. And again, just a reminder for people who might have missed it, the Founder Show is no longer on Sundays. The Founder Show will be happening on Mondays, but in the same time, not in the same time frame. The majority of shows are all going to be happening at 3 o'clock outside the Groyper Report, obviously, because we are a week in review. We have to wait till Nick's shows are done through there. But again, Monday, that is the Founder Show. That'll be 3 to 5. Might see some more new faces on there. Because again, like as Josh was saying, we got some things moving behind the scenes. But with that, thank you for being with us. Thank you for, I'm glad all the women have left and now it's just all the real men who are here. It's just messing. Not really. Christ is King. As always, seek first the kingdom of God. And one thing I want to do here too, this is a little shout out to a little gift shop my parents grabbed. I got this cool keychain. And it's one of my favorite verses, but it is Matthew 6:33. I'll pull this up here so you can see that. And written on the back is the verse. I'll leave you with this. Matthew 6:33. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all those things will be added to you. That is, again, once again, the most important thing, as always, your relationship with Jesus Christ. But beyond that, deport Cash Patel, deport Pam Bondi. Chain any woman who loudmouths or speaks off or speaks back, chain them to a kitchen sink and leave them there. And God willing, one day we will get our country back. Thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Where do you stand politically? Give us your political ideology.
Okay, I can say anything I want.
Yeah, bro. Say yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, the day-to-day stuff, I'm like, yeah, more bullshit. Another white girl got stabbed to death? Of course she did. What do you expect? For my politics, I just watch America First with Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I consider myself a Groyper. Sometimes I just wait to hear Nick's take to make sure I have the right take before I make videos, you know? So, yeah, I just go with what Nick says. I just defer all my political opinions to Nick Fuentes at this point. I'm America First. I wish that we had white Christian men running the country. It's unbelievable to me that we have a government that has a policy other than America First. How does that make any sense? We pay taxes, like, use our taxes to benefit the country that we live in.